Hi, welcome to the second episode of the Royal Brunswick Lodge Masonic podcast. In the first episode, I mentioned that looking at Masonic myths and conspiracies might be a good topic. So that's the topic of the second episode. We're going to look at some of the myths and conspiracies that surround Freemasonry, talk about whether there's any truth to them, and discuss. There are many different myths that surround Freemasonry. There's lots of conspiracies as well, and I think it's a natural thing, really, when you have an organisation where some people are members, some people aren't members. People tend to fill in the blanks by making up their own things, and I think people also like people to blame for things that might be going wrong. So if somebody perceives some injustice in the world, it's an easy thing to point to an organisation that they don't know a huge deal about and say, oh, it must be them. They must have a secret plan for it. Some of these are simple misinterpretations, as far as I can see, of little snippets of Freemasonry that people might have heard about, and they've just misinterpreted, innocently or otherwise, just because they don't fully understand it. Others are less easy to understand. So we'll start with one of the more simple. That there are blood rituals in Freemasonry. This isn't true. There's no blood involved in any Masonic ceremony whatsoever, either figuratively or literally. Nobody speaks about symbolically drinking blood or pouring blood. It's just not mentioned at all in any of the ceremonies. Some people even go further and say, oh, Freemasons have to drink blood from a skull, or from the skull of a virgin, to be even more specific. I have absolutely no idea where any of this comes from, to tell you the truth, because, as I say, there's no mention of blood in any ceremony, so it's difficult to see how somebody could have even heard a snippet of a ceremony and misinterpreted it. I think the blood ritual thing is likely linked to the next myth, and that is that Freemasonry involves devil worship. That's categorically not true. Freemasons do not worship the devil. There's no imagery or symbolism in Freemasonry that invokes the devil. There's no Baphomet or Baphomet type figure, no horned ram, anything like that. In fact, Freemasonry urges the avoidance. It teaches its members to follow their own holy book. The three main ones being, of course, the Bible, the Quran, the Torah, all of which, I believe, revile evil. They talk about the defeat of the devil. They revere goodness and truth, and that's exactly what Freemasonry teaches. There's no mention of the devil whatsoever. No horned goats. In fact, I suppose that leads on to another myth, is that there are goats involved in the ceremony. Again, I'm not entirely sure where that's come from. There's a joke that Freemasons sometimes tell to newer members, just a little bit of a wind up just before they join. We'll say things like, "Oh, make sure you keep your hands to yourself because the goat's in there and he'll bite your fingers," or something like that. Now, I don't know whether that joke came about as a result of the myth that we use goats in the ceremony, or I don't know whether that's the myth that we use goats in our ceremony. But either way, it's not true. I've never seen a goat in any Masonic ceremony. I've never seen evidence of a goat, and I can't see any reason why there would be a goat. So it's not true. We don't have to ride goats. We don't have to feed goats. We don't have to do anything. The whole devil worship, Satanism thing. Again, I'm not 100% sure where it comes from, because it's so far from the truth. But I suppose it could be a misinterpretation of the presence of the morning star in some Masonic ceremonies. Now, in Freemasonry, the morning star refers to the sun. It refers to light, the new day. I know that in some theology, the morning star refers to Lucifer. Well, that was Lucifer's role before his fall from grace and the war on heaven. But that's not what it refers to in Freemasonry. As I say, it refers to the sun rising east, to look towards the morning star, to see the light, for light to defeat darkness, evil to be defeated by good, ignorance to be defeated by knowledge and enlightenment. That's what it means. So that's my only My only hunch as to where the whole devil worship thing came from. Again, it's not true. The next myth is that Freemasonry is its own religion. Now, this one is utterly false. There's nothing whatsoever in Freemasonry that even looks like a religion or bears any resemblance to any organised religion. There's no aim in Freemasonry to replace anyone's religion, or even to work alongside anyone's religion anyway. As I've mentioned before, Freemasonry teaches its members to go to their own holy book for their spiritual, their theological teachings. So a Christian will go to the Bible, a Muslim will go to the Quran, for instance. There's nothing in Freemasonry that says ignore what you've read in the Bible or ignore what you've read in the Quran. This is the truth. It just says we should all come together to be good men, and be good fathers, good brothers, good citizens, good husbands, and go to your holy book, and that will help to guide you as to what God wants you to do, or whatever your religion calls God. That is what they want you to do. Go and learn that from your holy book, to replace it at all. The next one is more of a conspiracy, although I suppose it's a myth as well, and it's the most common one, and it's that Freemasons run the world. Now, this is the one that you'll hear most often. There's lots of YouTube videos out there about how Freemasons run all world banks, all the world governments, everything like that. This is one that really makes me laugh. And what I always say to people who are interested in Freemasonry when I'm showing them around the local Masonic hall, giving them a tour, talking to them about what Freemasonry is that to show the truth of this conspiracy. To show the truth of this conspiracy, they just need to come to the next committee meeting of any lodge where they're deciding what to have for dinner at, say, their annual meeting. And they'll see how this group of guys who can't even decide between beef and chicken couldn't possibly be running the world. One that you hear, and there's obviously no truth to it, but when you talk to somebody who subscribes to this conspiracy, and you say, oh, there's no truth, I've never seen anything that would indicate that, what they'll always say is, oh, you wouldn't know, you're too low ranking, only the higher ranks know, you're just one of the pawns, the foot soldiers who don't know what they're talking about. There's tiers to it, and people know what's going on higher up. As false as that is, I can see their logic. You know, in any big organisation, it stands to reason that there could possibly be tiers of people who you ascend to the next tier, and then you learn a little bit more about what's really going on. So I can see their logic, but what I always say is I've been a Freemason for about 8 years now, and I regularly attend meetings. I do a lot of research into attend meetings. I do a lot of research into Freemasonry in my spare time. I speak to a lot of other Masons about what it's all about. I know Freemasons who've been members for 20, 30, 40, even 50, 60 years, and I speak to them regularly. And what I say is, in that situation, how is it that I have never seen even the merest hint of any of these other tiers or layers or this hidden truth to Freemasonry? But somebody who's on the outside of the fraternity, who's never attended a single meeting, and has probably never actually spoken genuine Freemason face to face, seems to know all about it. It's so secret that even its members don't know, but somebody who's outside with access to Google knows all about it. It's utterly nonsensical. And what they'll usually come back with is that, oh, there's actually only a few who really know what's going on. I've even heard people say as few as 5 to 10 people in the world sort of sit around some sort of boardroom table and decide how the world is run, and that they're all Freemasons, and that they use Freemasonry to control it. And it sort of contradicts their previous, because if there's 5 to 10 people who know what's going on and nobody else knows, and it's utterly secret from all the other tens of thousands of members, then how on earth are they hoping to achieve their goal of world domination if all the members of this enormous organisation that they've built across the world don't know what the objective is. And it also sort of flies in the face of the fact that Freemasons must not favour other Masons over other people. You know, we're taught not to do favours or give special treatment to members over other members of the public. So again, that sort of web of control that these 5 to 10 people allegedly have just falls apart. It doesn't exist. What would be the point of creating a global organisation and then not telling any of its members what its aim was, encouraging them subconsciously to work towards that aim? It doesn't make any sense, and it's not true. We've sort of touched on the next myth here, and that's that Freemasons all look after each other. I think I've really covered this. It's expressly forbidden that Freemasons should do sort of dodgy deals with each other, or to sort of look after each other and give each other special treatment. It's not the case at all. If somebody tried garnering some favour from me simply because they were a Freemason, I'd remind them of their obligation and politely send them on their way, because that's not what it's about. That person would not be a very good Freemason, and it just doesn't happen. I think if we're looking at the roots of some of these myths, I think this one might be as simple as the fact that when you join Freemasonry, you enlarge your circle of friends in the same way that you do when you join any sort of club or organisation. If you join a rugby club or a cricket club, your circle of friends is larger than it was before, and within that circle of friends you're going to know people who you didn't know before, and those people might do something that you might need. So for instance, when you're plumbers, after I joined Freemasonry, I met a couple of guys who for their day job are plumbers. So then when I needed my boiler replacing, I thought, oh, I know somebody who's a plumber, I'll give them a call. I rang, he came round, said, yeah, this is the problem, I'll fix it for you, this is what it'll cost. Said, thanks very much, and on we go. He didn't knock any money off because we were Freemasons together. I just happened to know that he was a plumber because we were Freemasons together, and it gave us something to talk about whilst he was fixing the boiler. So no, it's not true. There's no preferential treatment given at all. I think all of this boils down to the fact that people will believe what they want to believe ultimately, and it's far harder to prove that something doesn't happen than to prove that it does. Essentially, when you talk to people who are determined to believe that there's something sinister to Freemasonry, who are determined to believe that there's something sinister to Freemasonry, there's nothing that you can say that would convince them otherwise. Even if you said, right, come and sit into a lodge meeting, you know, we'll bend the rules for this one time so that you can come, you can sit and you can see everything that happens inside a meeting. You were completely open. You only showed me what you wanted me to see. So there's no winning really with them. The only way to know is to join a lodge and find out. Join a lodge, sit in the meetings, go through the degrees, go and visit, meet other Freemasons, and then you'll find out the truth of it. And the truth of it is that there's nothing sinister to it. There's nothing hidden to it. It's exactly what we advertise it is. It's a fraternity of like-minded people who come together to socialise and to try and learn how to be better people. And I don't see that there can be anything wrong in that, as long as people do it for the right reasons. So those are some of the myths and conspiracies surrounding Freemasonry. I hope I've been able to give you a bit of an insight into the fact that they're not true, and a little bit of why they're not true and where they might have come from. I'll try and think of a good topic for episode